Good morning. Uh, in keeping with my theme of wearing a aloha shirt, this one's a little more subtle. Let me lift up a little bit and show you the hula girls, okay? Yeah, like I said, this one's a little more, they show a little more subtle. But still, in the spirit, I've been in this aloha shirt spirit. And I haven't run out yet in the closet, so we'll see how that goes. I always mention this is, I guess if you had to put a title, probably my favorite book, Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. And this is particularly beautiful, I've shared it before, but particularly beautiful edition. And the artwork is quite nice. If this shows up, I open it. It has the Chinese characters here. Maybe some of you can read. I certainly can. But a little bit of artwork, and it's quite nice. And I told you how I use it. I take it in my hands and I put it to my forehead and I open it randomly. And I was going to read something else, but look, I just opened to this, and it fits into what I'm talking about. The 5 colors blind the eye. The 5 notes deafen the ear. The 5 tastes deaden the mouth. Riding the chase on horseback over the fields drives you crazy when you overdo it. And wanting what's precious, you do not want. And wanting what's precious, you do what distorts your being. The sage knows that this is his gut and is guided by his instinct and not what his eyes want. Now, let me tell you, today's topic is number 33. This is 33 plus plus. This is the 3rd time I've come to 33. I'm doing a series of 3 times 111, which is 333, all tied in with this magic number of 33. Whenever I look, it's 1033. It's my address. Only address I remember is 433 West Cedar Street, Oxnard, California. And that's from 1959. But today I was going to talk about, other than celebrating, that was the main thing, celebrating that this is the 3rd time I've done number 33, 3rd and last. Okay, and I wrote, seeing isn't seen, and you have to look at the title. Seen with a small letter isn't seen with a capital. So I'm talking about the senses. I was talking about the 5 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. And then I went to the one that I've now lost. Here it is again, talking about 5. Blind the eye, deafen the ear, deafen the mouth. But the one that I opened up before I was just demonstrating, that's serendipity. See, that's how it works, it's magic. Now, I opened it too earlier today to get kind of centered for this sharing. I opened it, and lo and behold, I came to a page that I've read to you recently, but I'll read. Without going anywhere, you can know the whole world. Without even opening your window, you can know the ways of heaven. You see, the further you go, the less you know. The sage doesn't need to travel around. Why? Because he can still understand. He sees without needing to see. He never does anything, yet it all happens. Never lets me down, even when I'm using it for an example. The Tao Te Ching. So, what dawned on me, let's see if I can find that again. I shouldn't have closed it. It opened right up. He sees without needing to see. So, what I was going to talk about today, it's interesting, there's of the five senses. Seeing and hearing have multiple aspects. Seeing without seeing. And I wanted to talk about that because I was thinking about the five senses. Touching is a physical act. I can't touch God. I can't touch the wholeness. I can't touch the spirit. I can't touch the song of the universe. I can't taste the heavens. Except once in a while I get a taste when I'm in that occasional visitation, that all too short visitation to bliss. I can taste the nectar of the gods, they call it. I can taste it, but it's more a feeling of tasting than it is a sensation of tasting. Smelling, I smell the world around me. So, with the five senses, for me at least, three are worldly. Need to have a body, need to be in a body to experience them. Experiencing the world around me. And then seeing and hearing for at least today's sharing have a more nuance for me. Seeing with a small s, looking around, seeing the camera, seeing my room, seeing my photos on the wall. Seeing with a small c is not seeing. Just as tasting the nectar of the God, the heavenly nectar, is a sensation rather than a sense, than an experience. I shut my eyes to gather my thoughts. And that's, for me, when seeing with a capital, as I'm talking about today, that's when seeing is allowed to take place. When you're not distracted by the visual. When you're visualizing instead of viewing. Visualizing is the tuning in, is the real seeing. The outward, the seeing that we normally associate with one of our senses, seeing the world around us, is all Maya, as nice or as unnice as it might be, as distracting or as comforting as it might be. It's all Maya. Our mind participates, our mind takes empty space, because if you look at molecular, if you look at atomic structure, subatomic structure, it's all space, it's all empty. in our mind, our seeing. Our mind is directed by seeing. Our mind is not directed. Our mind is served by our seeing, where the empty spaces become, I'm looking at a solid wall in front of me, but actually it's far more empty space than it is filled space, but it appears to be solid. My mind is, I talked yesterday about, or 2 days ago maybe, about how hard it is to play. But trying to keep in a playful spirit, our mind plays. Our mind is the great trickster, the coyote in the Hopi Native American folklore, mythology. The coyote, the trickster. Our mind is our trickster, and seeing with my eyes as I'm opening them and looking is an accomplice. It's accomplice in this Maya, in this illusion, just as tasting, touching this assures me it's cooperating with my mind, assures me that it's solid. This is empty. But if truth be known, there's particles floating, this is far from empty, just as that wall is far from being full, solid. But these two senses, hearing, hearing is not auditory. As nice as it is to know what's to be warned. I love music. I listen to music all the time. Music wouldn't do me much good without hearing. Of course, I could feel, couldn't I? The beat. I could feel. So that's touching, tasting, smelling of this world. I'm not taking away the otherworldly examples, but they're few and far between. Whereas seeing and hearing, at least we're talking about me, because that's all I got. That's all I got. As humble as that may be. Hearing, the real hearing goes on for me internally. Just as the real seeing goes on for me internally. We were talking this morning about human design, and many of you may know, probably very few. It's not a well-known study, but human design is quite interesting, and I won't go into any detail other to say that I was looking at human design, thinking about the connections in the body. For me, my mind, anja, and throat are all connected. And from here, this is in terms of human design, talking about their 9 centers versus the seven chakra centers of early Hinduism. But this 9 is expressing the evolution, and we're talking about the addition of a G center, where we would usually think the heart was about sense of location, sense of place. Heart is a little bit below, and that's pretty probably pretty right. The center of my sternum to the heart is probably under here somewhere. Or here? Maybe here. Anyway, they added 2 centers. One is emotive, but you can look at emotive one as part of the solar plexus. And below the sacral, the source of energy. So I'm connected to here. But from here, to my spleen and root is my connection. So I've got the bottom connection and the top connection. I'm missing the center. And I laugh because maybe human design helped me to understand that the middle way, no matter how well founded, how well tested, never worked for me. I was either or. And maybe that's because my center, my chakras from below the throat, heart, to the solar plexus, to the sacral, are not connected. I can send the energy. They pass the energy, electricity going through the wire, but they don't stop. They're not activated. I have to work. I have to work on practicing compassion. I had to learn to replace criticism and judgment with compassion. And honestly, that's a work in progress. Because I'm gifted with sight, in addition to the third eye. I have a fourth eye in the back of my head that you never hear talk about, that's open. So I have a 360-degree peripheral vision. And I'm talking about in the etheric sense now, not in the physical sense of seeing. I'm talking in the sense of seeing, internally, the seeing that I'm talking about. That's the seeing with the capital S. The fourth eye, which actually I've never heard anyone talk about, but I remember it opening and allowing this 360-degree peripheral. I say vision, but I'm talking about the etherical. Just as I close my eyes so that I can see, I symbolically close my ears. Not as easily recognize that my ears are closed, except when someone says you're not listening. Well, I'm listening, but I'm listening with the capital L. I'm listening internally. And I could say eternally, because it's the eternal song, the rhythm of the universe that I hear when I close my ears. Just as it's the spiraling, never-ending, spiraling cosmos that I see when I close my eyes. It's interesting that the colors are never as intense that I see through my eyes as that with the little s seen, as the colors are when my eyes are closed. Nothing sounds as sweet. No words are ever more meaningful than the words that I hear, the sounds that I hear, the songs that I hear when I close my ears. So we're given 5 senses, and people talk about the 6th sense, intuition, and I have a finely defined sense of intuition. And that may have to do with the 360 degree, the fourth ear, the fourth eye, the fourth eye and the peripheral vision. Intuition is probably because third eye, then I have the fourth eye. And I laugh sometimes. Maybe the fourth eye is to keep anybody from sneaking up on me. I always had a very developed fourth eye in the sensation that of seeing with the capital S and not seeing with the small s. I could feel, I sense people coming up behind me. Probably most of you have this sensation, but how finely honed is it? How much attention do you pay to it? How bothersome is it? I, for one, hate to have anybody on my back close by. I'll step aside and let them pass. Just like you feel when you look in the rearview mirror and the guy's tailgating you. First chance I get, I want to pull over and say, go, go, go. Go with God. Bye-bye. Because they're so anxious to go nowhere. Little do they know, there's nowhere to go. You're already there. Here we are. So I don't know how many of you, I hope more and more of you will start paying attention. I talked about purpose for a long time. I talked it to death, and I told you that now is the process of waiting to see what this transformation, this realization of, a realization is just remembering what you've forgotten. You go, I knew that. That purpose was all about, that clarity, was all about purpose. I knew that. I knew that from an early age. I knew it was important. I knew the purpose of life. The purpose of life was to reunite, to become whole, to ignore the fracture, to ignore the division and separation, to overcome jealousy and judgment, to surrender to what is, has been, and always will be, the infinite, the wholeness, the self. So it's interesting to me that I have the senses that two of them suit me in both worlds, with the interior, the internal, the eternal world being of far more import, much more significant for me. And it's interesting, both through hearing and seeing, I get transported into the physical seeing and the physical hearing of the outer world, help to transform. They're my allies. They help me to launch into this inner realm. I sit and I listen to meditation music. I remember my teacher insisted that we sit in silence, but I believe that we listen to the words of our teachers, but they're not carved in stone. Like the Ten Commandments, like Moses and his tablets. They're not carved in stone. What your guru, what your teacher said is suggestion. You need to sort it out for yourself. In fact, the day you really begin sorting it for yourself is when you bow to the guru, bow to your sifu, bow to your teacher, thank them for accompanying you, to guiding you, and goodbye. This is the days of beginning to stand on your own 2 feet. And it comes for everyone. It's inevitable. It will come. The day will come. And you don't have to hasten it. You don't have to yearn or long for it. It will come. All things come with time, when the time is right. So when I stop listening to the external words, I told you now, I really have little interest to listen to anyone else speak about spiritual matters. I respect them, I bow to them, I recognize them, but I don't need the words. At first, when I have experienced abiding awakening, I need the words to find first company, somebody that agreed with me or disagreed. And secondly, validation. It was so important for me to be validated. I wanted everyone to know. I wanted to shout from the rooftops, only to learn that that's a fool's game. Keep your own counsel. If you're lucky enough, wise enough, that when your time comes and you don't feel the need, and the need, I guess, was a hunger for validation, reassurance. But if you need validation and you need reassurance, abiding awakening, you're having a non-abiding, a non-permanent awakening. But if you're longing for someone to recognize, to validate, you're not there yet. It's self-validating. You will know beyond doubt. And you will need no validation. You will need no recognition. But you will need to continue to surrender. Upon awakening, it's not unusual, at least I experienced, I had a spiritual ego. It's a more subtle trickster. Is this enlightened ego? As weird as that sounds. And you have to, it's really tricky. And this is what makes you long for recognition. Oh, look at me. And one of the things I respected about my Zen order from the very beginning is that we were monks without robes. We didn't cloister. Other than the 3 years of training, we didn't wear a costume. And I'm talking about robes. You know that I'm a holy man because I have these robes on and I can walk around everyone knowing. The real challenge is to be without outward decoration. If you looked at my early teachings, I have some beads hanging on the wall over there and a bracelet. And I used to wear them because one set of beads is all white with a purple bead. And the bracelet is purple with one white bead. And what that was symbolic of not any kind of religious significance or stature or representation of rank or achievement. It was to remember that I was one amongst the many. Purple with one white. White with one purple. One amongst the many. That's why I wore that. And recently I haven't been wearing it because, but I am wearing a gift from my wife. This is to help me with the sacral, orange color, stones, to visuals, a visual aid, because sacral is a source of, it's a source of sexuality. It's a source of male-female bonding and love. It's a source of procreation and sexual recreation as well. But basically, it's the dynamo. It's the inferno, where the fire, the energy that's pushes so many people to be such busy bees is generated. I'm a non-energy being. I'm not self-promoting. I need to be around good energy outside. Take my energy from the outside. And then I have to jealously guard it, to ration it. 2 hours of work a day is it. For me, it always has been. And it doesn't lend itself to a very successful career when you're working 2 hours a day. Fortunately, the teaching at university, most days I could teach 2 hours, or most 4, and I could make it through 4. But energy for 2 as a non-energy being. But I was talking about appreciating to be a monk without a robe, to walk amongst, to not be easily identifiable. It's a more subtle. How do you communicate to people that you're a monk without a costume, without a robe, without a bowl? Just by being and understanding that being recognized is really insignificant. It's not something to seek. It's to be avoided. It's anonymity really is a blessing. I could have remained in anonymity, but I did these sharings, and I might as well be anonymous because not many people are watching, really following me. And that's just what it is. And I'm okay with that. But I'm documenting. I'm doing this so that I could watch, so that I could measure, calibrate progress. When I watched the first video that I made in January of 2017, what do I see different about the end of August 2020? I went back, I've been going back, and gratefully, I haven't seen a lot of differences. I was on message from the beginning because I knew, I sensed that it was my time to come out of my shell, my time to begin the process of sharing. And where this process is taking me, who knows? Who cares? Just trust and let go.